Hello, everyone, and welcome to Minimalist Gourmet. Today, I'll be teaching you how to make some Coca-Cola ribs. Best part is that we're going to cook these right in the oven, no grill required, and I'll even teach you how to make your own homemade Coca-Cola BBQ sauce from scratch. Let's get started. You can choose your favorite cut of pork ribs, whether that be baby back, spare ribs, St. Louis style, they're all going to work perfectly fine. Whichever cut that you choose to use, let's start by flipping it over and taking a look at the bone side. Now, this step isn't mandatory, but this membrane right here, I like to remove it. It does not break down when cooked and it's quite chewy, so for a better finished product, we're going to go ahead and remove it. To remove the membrane, simply take something like a knife or a spoon handle and slide it between the membrane and the last bone on the ribs. You're going to pry up with the knife or the handle, releasing it from the last rib, leaving you with this little flap right here. Just use a paper towel to grasp the membrane like this and gently pull it off in a nice smooth motion. This should come off as one full sheet. However, if it sticks anywhere, just go ahead and stop for a second, use a knife to scrape it up, and keep pulling. Again, this is completely optional. If you want to leave the membrane on, you can. I'm just not a big fan of this as it is quite chewy, and to me it's a lot like having a wet piece of plastic in my mouth. So I'm going to go ahead and discard this. And finally, I'm going to cut this rack of ribs into half because I have a very small toaster oven and this will not fit as is. If you have a large oven and you can fit the entire rack in, don't worry about cutting it into two pieces. I'm going to start with the bone side up here on a large piece of aluminum foil, and I have some onions that I've placed along the bottom. This will not only help raise the meat up slightly for a more even cook, but it's going to imbue it with a nice flavor. I like to start by applying some soy or Worcestershire sauce and some apple cider vinegar for a nice acidic twang. Rub this into the surface of the meat so it's evenly distributed, and then we're going to apply our binder. For a binder, I'll be using some yellow mustard, and what this is going to do is create a nice sticky surface that all of our dry rub will adhere to so it doesn't fall off during the cooking process. You just want to apply a nice thin layer over the entire surface so that all of our dry rub ingredients will stick. My dry rub mix consists of a good dose of salt along with a very healthy dose of granulated garlic. Follow this up with a bit of paprika for color and flavor, a bit of ground black pepper, and finally some crushed red chili flakes for some heat. Go along pressing in your dry rub into the binder so that we have a nice crust across the entire surface. We're going to flip the rack of ribs over and we're going to repeat the entire process for the meat side. As a reminder, in all of my videos, I always include a written recipe with the times, temps, and quantities of all the ingredients, so definitely go down and check that out. And while you're down there, if you're enjoying this video, maybe give this a like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. With our ribs fully seasoned up, we're going to fold the aluminum foil over so that it completely wraps up our ribs nice and tight. Now, you don't need an airtight seal when doing this, but if you make a nice tight seal, it's going to go ahead and hold the moisture in as we cook a lot better and make a very good final product. Place these onto a tray that is lined with foil to catch any drips because trust me, there will be a lot. And I'm going to keep the end of this open so we can pour in the final ingredient, some Coca-Cola. I'm going to add about 3/4 of a cup of Coca-Cola directly into the bottom here. And what this is going to do is help control the temperature as we cook this, creating a very nice, moist environment, making our ribs fall off the bone tender. Just fold over the top of the aluminum foil, doing your best to make a nice tight seal, but don't worry, again, it does not have to be airtight. We're going to place this into a preheated 250-degree oven and allow it to cook low and slow for about 2.5 to 3.5 hours. While our ribs are cooking, this is a perfect chance to make up our barbecue sauce. We're going to begin with 1 cup of tomato ketchup, 3/4 of a cup Coca-Cola, 1/4 of a cup apple cider vinegar, between 2 and 5 tablespoons of brown sugar depending on how sweet you like it, ½ teaspoon ground black pepper, 1 teaspoon granulated garlic, ½ teaspoon paprika, 1 teaspoon yellow mustard, 1 teaspoon lemon juice, and finally 1 teaspoon of soy sauce. Stir this very well and put it over medium heat. We're going to cook this over a medium heat for about 10 to 15 minutes, stirring every minute or so so that it doesn't stick. What we're doing is driving off a little bit of this moisture and reducing it down until it thickens to our liking. After about 12 minutes, I reached this stage, and this looked good to me. Remember that it will thicken up slightly as we let it cool, so once it reaches your final stage of thickness, go ahead and stop and let it come down to room temperature. After 3 hours of cooking, I pulled out my ribs as they're done with the first stage of cooking. I'm going to open them up and pull them off so I can sit them on a cutting board for a little bit as I reset this tray for the next stage of cooking. If you have another clean cooking tray, you can go ahead and just use that. I only have the one, so I had to stop and reset. I put some new aluminum foil down here and got them ready for this saucing stage. Turn your oven to 375 degrees so it's hot enough for this saucing stage. We're going to take our delicious Coca-Cola BBQ sauce and spread a nice layer across the top. I like to begin by ladling a few spoonfuls of the sauce over the top before taking a pastry brush and spreading it out into a nice even layer. If you don't have a pastry brush, that's not a problem at all. Just use the back of a spoon. You want to make sure that the entire surface is completely covered in a nice even layer of your sauce. We're going to place this back into the oven at 375 for 10 minutes, allowing this nice layer of sauce to set completely. And after 10 minutes of cooking, these ribs are looking great. We're going to go ahead and apply a little bit more sauce here and repeat this process. I'm going to ladle on a few spoonfuls of sauce over the top once again, spread it out with the pastry brush until we have a nice even layer coating the entire surface. Then we're going to return it back to the oven for an additional 10 minutes so that this layer of sauce can caramelize. After the second layer of sauce, these ribs are looking fantastic, but I'm going to go ahead and do one final layer of sauce so that these things really pop with that flavor. Again, we're just going to go ahead and apply it just like before, put it in for 10 minutes, and finally, we have these. These look fantastic to me, so I'm going to go ahead and stop right here. You do want to let these sit at room temperature for a good 10 or 15 minutes to allow all those juices to redistribute, so that way when we cut into them, we don't lose all of that beautiful moisture we worked so hard to create. After a 15-minute rest, we're going to go ahead and cut these up for serving. I prefer to cut these into small portions that just have one bone per portion. I think it's a little easier to eat that way, but you can certainly serve this as a whole rack if you'd like. These turned out super moist, tender, and delicious with a fantastic caramelized crust on top. To think that we were able to achieve this all with nothing more than a toaster oven is pretty amazing. And guys, it really is just that easy to make these oven-baked Coca-Cola ribs at home tonight. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. I really do appreciate your time and attention today, and I hope to see each and every one of you again here next week on the next episode of Minimalist Gourmet.